Hey everybody, welcome back to the Bible Show. Today we're going to be discussing a very interesting topic, in my opinion. I think not interesting because it hasn't been talked about enough. Interesting because it's a lot more, it's more nuanced than people think. So today we're going to be discussing the long arm of pornography. So long arm, as in like Big Brother. Big Brother always watching over you, and why and how pornography has a reach over so many people, men and women, and women and women. All right, so we had the three key factors that I'm gonna break through, and maybe some more if I can identify more. So I actually said three, so I was able to break it down into four sections. But so basically, pornography is just lust slash satisfaction. Is trying to mostly pornography satisfies our lust, but doesn't satisfy. It doesn't really give us deep satisfaction as to really satisfy the cognitive origin. I think there's a lot more. It requires a lot more intimacy to satisfy that cognitive origin. So it can satisfy our lust, but definitely not completely satisfy the cognitive origin that all humans are seeking. So that's basically it. Just naked girls, and for women it's just well, that's long. That's probably a different video. But yeah, naked girls. This is about it. Lots of different naked girls, and breaking it into three constraints. Why it has such a long arm, even though you try to quit, you try to take a break. And so we have the fantasy aspect. We have the fantasy aspect of pornography, that it's able to achieve three different very important vectors. So the three vectors that I have here is any girl slash guy you want. This is not, the guy part is not so important for a woman, but this is important for a guy. Any girl you want, any way you want, and any time you want. This is what pornography is able to achieve, or just any sort of pornography. Yeah, and is I'm trying to think of it, extends to webcam services as well. Webcam, any girl you want, any way you want. Nah, webcam, there's sort of a payment barrier, as well as OnlyFans. Any way you want, anytime you want. But just traditional pornography, it can achieves all three aspects. And this is why people keep coming back to pornography. People relapse. This is basically it. Just because pornography is able to satisfy all these three factors. And so the solution, as I mentioned before in the last video, it's sort of like reaching that almost, when you're in a state of self-control, it's like you're holding yourself back, and like, just due to the weakness of the human flesh, eventually you're gonna, for the most part, it's gonna lose. And I think what upsets people the most is that which is the human attention span, right? It takes away from our attention, and in life, our attention is very limited. For example, a great example of this: if you're texting and driving, no matter how great, how perceptive you are, like how good your eyesight is, or how good you are at multitasking, it's gonna take your attention away. There's no way. I don't think there's any human being out there that, when texting and driving, their attention isn't taken away in some shape or form. And that's sort of the crux of attention theory. Attention theory is something that I picked up from playing League. Like, certain things will always take away your attention. And self-control, sort of like battling against the flesh, that's always, if you haven't reached an aspect where you're sort of bored, or you're just reach an aspect where it's not self-control, where you're able to manipulate your state of mind, but it's not because of self-control, then you're always going to lose your attention. I think that annoys a lot of guys. It annoys a lot of guys and women. Well, it annoys a lot of guys, especially because I know, offense to women, they waste a lot of their time. They really do. But guys, I think guys are better at using their time, I think. And so basically, guys get really annoyed when their attention is taken away, because our attention has a lot of power, in terms of giving attention to women, in terms of giving attention to really trying to self-improve, trying to grow yourself, trying to really make a life out of yourself. Our attention is very important. And to really lose our attention to fight against the flesh, fight against pornography, that is just super annoying as a guy. Plus the embarrassing aspect, there's just it's like some loser stuff. So like this is there's so many struggles with it, with the guy, and like for someone to quit, there's also like I mentioned before, there's a way that guys want to quit. They don't want to. I don't think guys really want to do the self-control thing. I'm not advocating against like self-control in the Bible, because there's always going to be a degree of self-control. But I think guys sort of want to lean into the boredom aspect. Like they're sort of it's like they never knew about porn in the first place, and I'm sort of gonna explain that method. That's sort of I feel like there's how do I say this without sounding like a douche? I'll see if I can figure it out. So any girl / guy you want. So this is the fantasy that we're gonna break this down one by one. So any girl / guy you want. This is the fantasy that pornography is able to achieve. And for a guy, I think the solution is sort of for your life to be is for your game to be on point. Because once your game is on point, you can basically have any girl you want, and then your life is basically going to be a porno. And biblically speaking, that's not what we want. That's not the idea we're going for. Maybe it is if you need to spread the gospel to, I think, this might be a separate video about missionary masterclass. I think it's important for your game to be important, so you can spread the gospel to, you have mastery over both genders. You're able to really, if you're intelligent enough, you can spread the gospel to a guy. But you want to spread the gospel to a woman, your game has to be on point. So she able to spend a lot of like time with you, and she's able to absorb your ideas. But that's sort of, maybe that's a missionary masterclass. But back to the topic. Once your game is on point, your life is basically, well, the idea is if your life is a porno, you don't need to watch any porn. So that's the idea behind it. So resources to get your game on point. Andrew's PhD course, just looked it up on Rumble. Tristan's player year. This is not, not to knock on Andrew or Tristan, but not the most, well, I think everything in life is a biblical resource, biblical principle. God's wisdom applies everywhere. But sometimes how we use advice is not always biblical. So it's like how God mentioned in Corinthians, it's not what you take in that corrupts you, it's what you produce. So be careful what you produce. If you don't want to, if we really, as you should be, concerned about where you end up, be careful what you produce. But nonetheless, these are some amazing resources for guy. Andrew's PhD course, that's amazing. That's an amazing course. Tristan's players year, it's like $10, but it's a great resource. And a lot of Andrew's other stuff about the game and woman. And there's this other author. He has some really good stuff. It's like it's an amazing book. It's an amazing book. Really, it's not called The Game. I think The Game by Neil Strauss. It's not too bad, but there's a book that's better on that. So go to like a C.S. Joseph reading list, my mentor Chase, and go to the section about women, and I would say there's one book on there that's really good, but there's a good amount of books there about women. And then maybe if you guys like what I talk about, maybe watch some live stuff, because I'll drop some stuff here and there. And any way you want, it's that's sort of another fantasy that pornography is able to achieve, like any way you want. And it's like the woman is always in love with you whenever you're watching porn or porno. I just laughing at myself there. That's sort of what pornography is able to achieve. Just like a woman just is at your will and command. And yeah, just the way to achieve this is your game. Your game has to be on point. So definitely go through, study the game, really understand women, like head to toe, like how women think, why women act the way they do. And I'm not sure if I want to make this a separate video. It's like you become so good at understanding women that you become, I might put it in here, you become a neo-transgender. You basically, it's not like you do surgery to transition yourself, but you sort of understand women so well that you're able to like transition genders, quote unquote. So basically how woman thinks is like what guy out there do I respect? And so like a woman will be walking on the street, like that guy's kind of creepy, that guy's kind of cute, that guy's kind of creepy, that guy's kind of weird, that guy's blah 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 blah, all in terms of the framework of what guy out there do I respect. And I just give a little bit of mastery on neo-transgenderism, being able to transition genders. For a girl, if you want to understand a guy, what girl do I love? Basically, how guys think is like, what girl do I love? What girl do I love? What I think that? I think, like instinctively, if a girl sees another pretty girl, like she would probably think maybe a guy will like her. But what girl do I love? I think thinking of it from that aspect, you really understand guys, and you really start to understand how honorable guys can be compared to women. It's like if you really understand women, you really start to see how promiscuous, not like promiscuous, that's the wrong word, how lustful a woman can be, which is that's sort of what we mentioned before. Respect is attached to what respect produces is sort of lust for women, and what love produces is love, acts of service, gifts, a bunch of other stuff. Love is very creative. So basically, that's sort of the new word I've been thinking of, or new concepts I've sort of labeled neo-transgenderism. Just understanding both genders while you're able to transition between both genders. It sounds kind of crazy, but it's true. Neo-transgender. So basically, just to reiterate on that point, your game has to be on point. You really can't go out there with a weak game and like telling a woman to like do this, do that. It's not good. It's not gonna happen. It's probably not gonna happen. Plus, you really gotta. There's a lot really. Yeah, just watch Andrew's PhD course, and that's good for this. That's good for that. But taking this back a little bit biblically, within the confines of marriage, that's when a man, I would say, has the most control. That's where it starts. Before that, it's not really. So anytime you want. So this is the biggest constraint for most guys, even if your game is on point. Actually, if your game is really on point, I'm sure this constraint can be achieved, but to have any girl you want, or any guy you want, it's a long story, or any way you want, any time you want, this is probably still the most difficult constraint, even if your game is on point. But a prerequisite is that your game still has to be on point. But this is more like system slash strategy slash tactics. So this is where like the sort of the trial and error aspect comes in, and sort of the growth aspects come in. Maybe you need your girl or your wife, your significant other with you by your side at all times, or you gotta have some sort of strategy, some sort of tactic, or some sort of system, like whatever system fits into your life, to really satisfy this anytime aspect. Because pornography, you just type some words on your phone and type a couple words into your phone, tap a couple, go through a couple user interface screens, and basically you're there. But to have a woman by your side, just a woman appear out of thin air, and your game has to be on point. And you'd have some sort of system, some sort of strategy, some sort of tactic. Maybe yeah. I guess that's sort of the way to achieve it. Just some sort of system to have woman appear out of thin air, and it's gonna take a lot of trial and error. But the prerequisite is that your game still has to be on point. But you could have some sort of system where women just appear out of thin air, which I think it's the most difficult out of all these three to have, to achieve the anytime aspect. Because just saying it, you see the problem, you see the difficulty having women appear out of thin air, and having decent looking women, no offense, appear out of thin air. So yeah, that is difficult. And of course, we still always have the last barrier, lust / satisfaction, which is always going to pop up here and there. And sort of the way to deal with that, because I would say once you get in trouble with lust for the first time, like growing up as a man when your hormones start to kick in, or as a woman growing up, basically your system sort of knows what it's doing. It's sort of in your system in a way, unless you're way away from it, like for a long time, then your system sort of forgets. But you're sort of got to struggle with lust all your life, especially as Satan, the devil, comes to tempt us, try to drag us to a very bad place. So I guess besides self-control, besides trying to look away, mastering our attention, which is, I think no one wants to do it that way because it drains so much of our attention. Really, I would say this is like overload theory. Something, a concept that I think would achieve defeating lust. It's like really overworking your brain, because the brain is sort of as someone that I think as someone, so I'm dealing with a concussion. I have like sort of like a permanent concussion because I made some blunders. I just made some blunders in life. It happens. And your brain is easily overloaded, and like as someone with a concussion, I sort of understand that how easy the brain can overload. And I guess given that idea was it's a good way to understand overload theory, but you can still understand overload theory without any sort of brain injury. It's basically dealing with so much, lust or satisfaction, which is like sex basically, that you're so used to it, you're so bored of it, your brain is overloaded, your sensory is overloaded, you no longer get that dopamine hit or high. And that's the crux of overloading theory, just overloading our senses to sort of break the brain, because the brain can't be broken, the dopamine can stop, and the brain can be fried out, can be completely tired with overload theory. Basically, what is produced by overload theory is you need a new high. Maybe your new high is spreading the gospel. Maybe the new high is building something good to make the most out of your life. That's sort of what overload theory does. So overload theory is really, I didn't mention this. I don't think I mentioned this in my first video because this is really dangerous to play with. It's pretty dangerous, but I think it's sort of a production of when your game is on point. When your game is on point, you sort of deal with overload theory, like when you sort of have the different ways, many ways to play the game, like many ways to play the game. It's like it gets easier to play the game, so you sort of already deal with a little bit of overload theory. But when you tackle lust / satisfaction in terms of overload theory, that's sort of a way to defeat it and get it off your attention Rolodex, so you can dedicate your attention toward things that are more important, to be honest. Because at the end of the day, lust and sex, it's not. I think it's exciting for a guy because I think women make life exciting, so that's why it's exciting. And besides that, it's not the most important thing in life. The most important thing in life is the battle versus good and evil. It's like life is basically an anime. It's basically good versus evil, but those themes aren't as transparent because we always talk about money in the news. We always talk about sustaining ourselves in the news. That theme isn't so present in life because, unlike an anime, human life is very hard. We deal with a lot of struggles and adversity. And so what's on the news, what's projected on the news, is humans trying to sustain and maintain themselves. That's what a lot of talk on the news is about. But in reality, once you're self-sustaining life, which to be honest, I don't think, unless you're very you worked very hard. I don't think not a lot of us are at that level yet. But I think once you're self-sustaining life, then it becomes pretty apparent that life is all about good and versus evil. But that's sort of the best thing to. That's sort of the that's what life is. That's the most important thing in life, and I think that's the most satisfying thing about life is whether you're evil people love to fight good, or you're a good person, you find joy fighting evil, and that's sort of what life is all about. Once we really we're able to self-sustain, that's the crux of life. So life is an anime. Life is basically an anime, and that's where I think animes are fun. Like watching animes are fun. Watching the battles between good and evil is fun, and I'm getting the power, like in anime, to really fight evil, or if you're evil, if you're the seed of the devil, to fight good. I think that's where that's what's most fun about life, and to have a beautiful woman by your side while you're fighting evil, that's pretty fun too. So lots of that's what life is all about, and I might make a separate video on that to hammer down the point that life is really about good and evil. I think I just really was able to go on a tangent and really go on a tangent into a different video. But yeah, all this sort of basically what achieving that sort of aspect is going to give your attention towards the fight, towards sort of what life is about, besides taking care of yourself, sustaining yourself. So this is all very interesting stuff, and the hows, I think in my opinion, it's better than self-control, because self-control takes away your attention, which is it's not good. You always need your attention as much as possible. But I guess the problem with this in the beginning, I'll be honest with this, is sort of this is a system. Yeah, this is sort of like a system. What this system is that your attention is going to be on the game, as you're going through it, as you're learning more about it. But after that, once you sort of just get it down pat, your attention will disappear into something else. Benefits of sort of there's so many side tangents I could go on, but just how long is this video? Okay. Just actually, if I say that, I don't want to end the video on a note like that, but anytime with mastery, it's always gonna take away your intention at the beginning, like trying a new champion in a league, learning something new, like learning a new champion is gonna take away your attention. But once you reach mastery, your attention is gonna be away from learning the champion, and it's gonna be able to go into other things. And but you still have that mastery inside of you, so it's pretty cool. You have the mastery inside of you, and you're able to use that mastery very well as you point your attention towards different things. And I think this is the problem with pornography is not more so attention with the eyesight, it's more so attention with the brain, like where our brain's attention is. And your brain's attention is going to be taken away from pornography once you sort of get the game, once your game is on point. For a woman, I barely gave practical advice to women, but practical advice to women to defeat these 3 key vectors, any guy you want. I guess you gotta keep yourself busy. This one, actually. Okay, let me go bottom up. Anytime you want. I guess you really gotta get I think women understand the solution to this. I think with what I explained, I think women understand the solution to this, so I don't have to say anything. I think women have seen, if this is what a guy's solution is, I think women understand their solutions. No words need to be spoken there. But yeah, if you enjoyed this video, if you learned something new, if you learned something helpful, drop a like, drop a share, and subscribe maybe. And yeah, really, as a guy, really read the resources. One of the resources, you have to pay for it, but it's worth it to pay for it, because I have the resource as well, and it's good. As always, stay safe, stay blessed.